Welcome, everybody. And we've got another interview with Jacques Weyers. Jacques is a very well-known photographer. He's worked around the world, still does. He travels a lot. He's been in the fashion industry for a long time. I've known him for a long time. And what's been really great is meeting all, as I said before, meeting these different people and seeing how they're coping now and what they were doing before, and catching up after so many years of not seeing people like Jacques. I think the last time we met was about 4 months ago for about 5 minutes at Photo Hire, and said hi, and then otherwise it's been, so this has been a great opportunity to chat to people and see what people have been doing. So Jacques, you've been in the fashion world most of the time. How did you get into that side of photography, and what got you into photography? I know you're a Durban boy, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for having me. I mean, yeah, just to say, I think you were the one that got me into digital photography. I mean, back in the Pixel Foundry when you first started that, and that brief meetup when I think we were at a Fuji event, weren't we? So yeah, I mean, I basically, I come from a graphic design background, but photography sort of became a passion of mine during that process. And back in that day, I mean, I'm an old crocodile. I've been around for quite a while. So, there weren't that many photographers, especially photographers shooting fashion. I don't even think there were magazines. There were maybe Rurissa, Fair Lady, and possibly Sari back in the day. Certainly none of the international magazines that came, and a lot of which now unfortunately have passed. But so I kind of had no real way of learning, and photographers that I approached was sort of, well, what do I need an assistant for? They weren't really using assistants back in the day, and especially the guys. I didn't really know at that point what direction I wanted to go into. I was kind of still trying to figure that out. I just knew that I loved taking pictures, and that was sort of the direction I wanted to go in. And so I kind of decided, let me hit London. Sort of took advantage of that sort of 2-year gap that we used to get. Hit London, and I really fell in with my arse into the butter. I started working for Southwest Studios there. I started my way literally from painting a curve every morning and pulling lighting and gear orders out. I used to go into the office, pull the faxes out, go down to the storeroom, pull the gear. A lot of the time I didn't even know what the gear was. I had to sort of figure that out myself. I knew nothing. I kind of lied my way into the position. I shouldn't say I completely lied, but I'd been working on a few sort of sets more as an observer, being the graphic designer on a set than an assistant. So, but got the job and ended up sort of working my way up over a period of time, still not knowing what I wanted to do. And I sort of was based there assisting photographers who maybe needed a third assistant. So from everywhere, from everything from food to still life to book covers to music, a lot of music, and the odd fashion thing. And it wasn't actually until I was working for a photographer who was shooting the Spice Girls, who had this amazing sort of energy about him, and he was directing these girls back in that day. So now you know how far back we're going, giving my age away and my time away.
Pretty youngster,
You know what I mean? So it was like it bit me. It was like, this is what I want to do. I want to shoot people. That sort of connection to people, that getting that response, getting that energy out of people, and that's when that was it. And then I started pursuing assisting photographers who shot specifically music at the time, because it was sort of the most energy, and then that kind of got me into fashion side of things, and then I was, wow, this is really cool too. And that's kind of how it started. And it was also when Cape Town was just becoming really popular for shoots. So my timing was really good. I was booked on a job in Cape Town. So I was actually flown back to Cape Town, and I was from Durban. Spent about a year in Cape Town working in the design industry prior to leaving for London. And then I found myself back in Cape Town working on a production with a photographer. And, there was sort of a lot of international teams were coming, and suddenly it was like, hang on, I can actually base myself here and phone the photographers I've been working with during a season and say, listen, I'm here. So if you need a photographer in Cape Town, I'm here. So I was in London for about 4 years. I did that for about 4 seasons. And then my wife, I was married at the time, got married really young. 21, I got married, was still happily married, and she's sort of been my foundation in this industry. But I ended up coming back and then going. She was like, I've had enough of London now. I want to be back in Cape Town, and I was like, okay, there's great opportunity. So, spent about another 4 years based in Cape Town. I mean, in those days, assisting was a proper apprenticeship. I mean, you didn't even pick up a camera. I mean, as third assistant, you didn't even see a camera. And I think for 4 years as an assistant, I never even took a picture. I mean, obviously my private things, I didn't test or take, approach modeling agencies. Not like today, which is just such a fast pace. Guys come on the scene with their digital cameras. It's not really costing them anything to experiment. I used to take my film out. I used to shoot different exposures, write down what I was doing, match it up to frames. I mean, it was a long process, a long learning curve. And, and it's time I really value. And it's sort of a lot of times assistants say to me, so what does it take? What does it take for me to become a photographer? And I say, listen, you take your time, first of all. It's a long road. Being a photographer, once you're in and you're working, it's a long career, and you don't want to hit the road running before you've had time to crawl. And it's also take your time to develop who you are, develop your style, get your head around who you are as a photographer. Don't copy people's work. Don't think that because you've done a great shoot, but you've referenced it and now you've kind of copied it. That type of thing. It's never gonna do you any good. You need the penny to drop. You need to realize, this is who I am. This is what I represent as a photographer. This is my eye. This is my style. So I always tell assistants, that's what you got to do, man. You got to figure out what that is. Of course, you want to work and you got to earn. And the other thing is, forget about photography school. As far as I'm concerned, that is the biggest waste of time and the biggest waste of money. I'm not talking about online courses where you're learning techniques or you're learning Photoshop or you're learning Capture One or you're learning that sort of thing. I'm talking specifically how the camera works and that type of thing. Just get shooting and get working and get assisting. Work for a photographer, work for as many photographers as you can. And by working for as many photographers as you can, you actually learn more about what not to do than what to do and what suits you and what doesn't suit you. I think I learned more about how to deal with people and clients than I ever learned about photography as an assistant. Have I gone off? I've probably gone off the subject now, haven't I? I've just gone down a tangent.
I assisted for 4 years as well. Before I assisted a London photographer who moved out to Cape Town, Roger Bell, and I did 4 years assisting. And I remember my first week there, he said, "Oh, I'm going off to London, the US for 2 weeks. Make sure when you come back, the studio is completely repainted again. This I want built, that I want done." I'd never picked up a paintbrush or built a thing in my life, and that's what you had to do. And for years, 4 years, I loaded film because we shot mainly 4.5. So I was in the darkroom loading film, doing stuff, painting, fixing sets, and I think I just learned so much in that time. And I think you're talking about the school and studying. I never studied photography. I did apprenticeship. And I just think it's such a shame that none of the schools have actually linked up with photographers and actually said, let's accredit you guys and put our students.
You like recording this, right? I like what you're saying here.
It's all. Everything's being recorded. Yeah. So I would really like, photography schools to rather say, there's so many photographers and there are a lot of us, who've been around a long time. Come to us and say, look, we'll put 3 or 4 of our students with you for 6 months or a year, and we'll swap them to other photographers. But then it becomes part of their accreditation, and you as a photographer become accredited as well as and a teacher for them. And
I completely agree with you. I've always wanted to help, and I've never said no. I've been there. I know what it's like when you've got this passion and you just need a foot in the door. And anybody is welcome to call me at any time. I'm never going to say no. To help. I'm not going to pay you to teach you, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. And, I've had my assistants have been around, they seem to have this sort of 4-year cycle about them. I don't know what that is. They come in and I went on for another 4 years. I assisted for 8 years in the end, 4 in London, 4 in Cape Town in season, and spent my winters testing and that, developing my book and developing my style. But I always said, give me a call. Pull in, even if you just sit there silently and see what's going on. More than happy, and I think that is very true. It's very, very true.
Because we've always done that. We've had it. Well, at the Pixel Foundry, we employed 5 assistants, and at any one time, we would have 3 people on long-term work studies with us, and quite often from overseas, because there they tended to give them about 6 months. to
Yes,
come out and spend with us. They were far more progressive in that regard. So I think
that's
there's a
right.
lot one can do, and getting into the business now as well. As I think people need to slow down.
Yeah,
I think there shouldn't be, at 22 or 23, you don't need to be seen as a top-notch photographer. It takes 10,
100%.
15 years to get there. So, build your skills. And I find a lot of people only, and I don't know if you see this, they have one skill set. So they're brilliant with natural light, and that's what they can
Yes,
shoot. Then the client comes in and it's raining and says, look, we haven't got time. We need to do this in
yes,
studio. And then they don't
yes,
even know where to switch the lights on.
correct.
Correct.
You know,
No, you're dead right. And it's also about impressions as well. A lot of these guys are sort of wanting to get going so quickly, and they must always remember that the first impression is a lasting impression. They go out there with a bunch of work that's not up to standard, and they get judged on that. It's very hard to dig yourself out of that, once you have. So take your time, develop your book, get constructive criticism, speak to professionals, especially working professionals who understand that it's not always about what you want and an image you can take, but about how you can interpret a brief and how you can take a client's idea and interpret that in your style and in your way, because that's why they're coming to you. But don't run before you've walked, and certainly don't walk before you've crawled. Just go through the process, take your time, take a deep breath. I only started shooting in 2000. So I was 30. Well, no, 28, sorry. So 28. So yes, so 20 to 28, correct. So, don't rush. And I've been saying that to all my assistants, like, don't rush, take your time. And a lot of them have gone in different directions, some into video, some suddenly go, I'm out, I don't even want to do this anymore. And I'm like, what have you been doing all this time? And they're like, they just go, I realize that I don't see things the way you do, and that used to bother me in the past, because I'm like, well, see them for yourself. Don't try I was trying to teach them what you should be taking out of this is how to do things yourself. Don't go, I don't see the things the way he does. There's no rules here. You do it the way you see it, and that's such a big lesson.
Yeah, very much so. And then just moving on to your fashion side of things, do you find being a fashion photographer that you have to be really up to speed on what's happening in the fashion world? Are you keeping up to date with the latest fashions, the latest trends, or is it very much that you take the brief from the photographer, from the client?
No, I think a lot
of clients, they want your input. If you can show a client that you understand what the trends are, they're more than likely, much more than likely going to book you than maybe a photographer that's unaware, that's just waiting for a brief. It's very much up to your interpretation of that brief, and also to be able to say, actually, no, you're wrong. This we can't do it like this. We need to do it like this, and this is why. A client really respects that, and a client, long after a client's got their images and is happy with the results, have they forgotten about what they wanted, what you haven't given them? You know what I mean? And if you're trying to shoot for them only, and if you're trying to give them what they want only, you are going to make mistakes. And at the end of the day, when those images come back and they're sitting in their office with 20 colleagues around them going, what the hell happened here? The first thing they're going to say, well, it's the photographer. You're the first person that's going to get blamed. So rather get blamed for something you stood for and believed in, then get blamed for something that you're like, well, hang on, but actually this was I'm trying to do what you're telling me to do. I've had many clients going, oh, can you just shift over here? And I'm like, yeah, but look how this changes. Now the light is not quite behind them, or it's not quite in front of them, or yes, that's a great background and we can do that, but let's come back to that. The light isn't right for that now. I'm not a technical photographer at all. Honestly, I'm not. I'm very instinctual. For me, it's about where the light is at the time. Unless I'm in studio, I'm creating it fully. But when it comes to most situations, I'm like, well, the light's good there, let's go there. I'm not going, oh, that's a nice background, let's go to that background. You know what I mean? So it's that sort of fine balance where you're saying to your client, look, yes, never say no to your client, but let's just go, I'll come back to that. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm never going to go, oh, no, that's terrible. Why would I want to create that kind of friction? But just say to a client, listen, this is why I think this is better. And even better, just to show them. They will love it when you're going, look at this. This is amazing. And also they will relax. You know what I mean? When they see that you're loving something and you're producing something amazing, then they just keep quiet and they kind of slot in, and then it just becomes this amazing experience for them. But when you're not trying to give them something that they want and it's not working for you, and your frustration is going to creep in whether you like it or not, they'll see it on your face, and then it'll become this horrible experience for both of you. So stay true to yourself, you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, whilst doing that and having, you're traveling a lot, you work all over the world and stuff. I mean, you must have had some amazing experiences and some quite interesting times with the different people.
Absolutely.
I mean, just give us a little taste of some of the stuff.
I'll tell you what I'm going to actually tell you. I'm going to tell you the funniest story, actually not as a photographer, but as an assistant. And it was back in the days of shooting film. And, I was first assistant, so I was the most responsible. And, so you've got your third assistant's basically loading film, and you've got your second assistant who's helping you light, and then you're controlling the light, and the photographer always takes the credit, and he's just going cuck. And back in the day, they took the credit and you did all the work. So, which was great because you learned. But I was actually in Miami, and I was assisting in a big catalog job, and that was back in the days where Miami was absolutely flying. I mean, there was a team shooting on every corner. Cape Town kind of became like that actually, a good few years ago, but it was like photography. I used to have to send my third assistant down to the beach to go and cordon off where the photographer wanted to shoot. So we'd go to recce and he'd be like, okay, great, we're going to be on Wednesday. Production company would get the permits sorted out, and then I'd send them down in the dark. Go and lock that off right now, because 9 times out of 10 you'd get there and other teams were setting up, right? So I think it was like a 10-day shoot, and we were it was long days. I mean, long days. Like early before the sun came up, we used to work all day. And I got to a point on the 10th day where we were just broken. We were absolutely knackered. And what was happening is every night we'd come home, we would have a shower, put down all the gear, make sure everything was good. Third assistant, the poor bug, would go and clean everything, make sure the cameras were clean, get the sand out of the bags, etc., etc. And then we were going to have dinner as a team, and it was always fun, But on this last night, we finished very late. We were a little bit behind. The photographer was shooting an extra amount to cover. And of course, as happens, clients were throwing in the extra, can you just do one more of these? And can we just do one more of these? And so we got to a point where we were so tired, but we wanted to have a bit of like a wrap thing. And we were like, okay, listen, it's already dark. Let's just go straight to the restaurant. We'll have a dinner. Then we'll go to the hotel and shower and do everything. So I was like, fantastic. Came off the beach. Third assistant gave me the bag full of rolls of film. There was loads of film in this bag, and I was like, okay, great. Went and sat in the restaurant, had a meal, and got up and left. Got home, had the shower, and I was like, where's the bag of film? I'd left the bag of film in the restaurant. I'll tell you what, my heart, I mean, to this day, I've never experienced that before. I was just like, I'm never going to work again. I'm going to have to pay for this whole day. Ended up running back to the restaurant, and we kind of left as it was closing. So it was, and I could sort of see where we were sitting, and I was scanning, and I couldn't see camera bags. It was camera bags and film bags, just by the way. So what happened was, because I was closer to the photographer, I kind of always felt like I had to stay with him until the end, but the other two had left, so and didn't take anything. We were in such a routine after those 10 days, from just going back first, dropping off, and that everybody was just out of and tired. And now I'm just freaking out. So I get back to the hotel, and the concierge guy that we've been chatting to the whole time, very nice American guy, was just like, "What's going on? You look terrible. You pale. What's going on? Are you not feeling well?" I'm like, tell him my story, and he's like, "Oh no, I know the restaurant." He said, "No, actually, I know one of the waiters that works there. I'm gonna give him a call." And I was just like, please. So he gives him a call. The guy goes, apparently opens up, and there's nothing. Now, he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. So he then gives me the message. I get this message. No, it's gone. And I'm like, whoever came and sat down there, just looked and it was, why is a camera bag, and left there with a camera bag. Probably threw the film in the bin. I actually was rummaging through bins, thinking maybe they dumped all the film or something, Anyway, so I woke up that morning, my heart in my throat, and I'm like, now I've got to go and tell this photographer, what's happened. Absolutely, I was shaking. It was the worst experience of my entire life, literally. And as I came down the stairs, they were all sitting there, and I'm like building up the courage to go and tell him, and I just see this guy walking with the film bag and the camera bag. So what had happened is, the restaurant owner had picked up the gear, and he had actually taken it home with the intention of coming past the restaurant to drop it off. But he didn't have numbers for us or anything. But anyway, that was the worst and funniest story. I laugh at it now, but it was absolutely terrible at the time. Really.
I can think of, in those film days, we used to, I would remember you'd loading 8x10 or 5.4, and suddenly you think, geez, now, did I put a sheet of film in there or didn't I?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
or has that one been shot? Did we remember when he put this dark
Yes.
slide in to put it in correctly? And you just have sleepless nights. Now at least you can see it on the screen, and
That's right.
you can
No,
back
that's
up.
right,
So
that's
you know,
right.
I back up, triple backup whenever I.
I'm the worst. I've got like 4 drives. I've never touch wood, lost anything, but I'm petrified of that. Like I'm rather take the time. I always say to the Digi, listen, you actually steer the ship. When you are ready for us to move on, when you know you're there, then we move on. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a, maybe it's a control freak or whatever. So I do everything myself, but my work's quite different because it's still live, or even if it's fashion or lifestyle that I'm doing, it's one setup in a studio or somewhere, and it's not. I don't do huge garment changes and things like that. It's normally just for an ad or something, and I do everything myself because the moment somebody else is doing it, I'm looking over their shoulder. Have you done it? Have you not done it? Is it backed up? I'm just know if I've done it, then I know it's right. That's right.
I'm also very hands-on. I mean, it's kind of almost part of my thought process. You know, I've driven a couple of my assistants mad because I tend to not say, listen, can you move that or can you do that? I do it myself, but it's a way of me actually disconnecting from either being with the client and thinking about what I'm doing. It just works for me, you know. So I kind of end up just doing these things, and the guys are like, listen, we're just standing here. What's what's going on? But I think it's also you know, it's a good way for them to learn by seeing what you're doing. You know, eventually they pick it up. I mean, I've had guys that just read my mind. I mean, it's just, you know, especially after a bit of time, it's just incredible. They just do things. And when you get to that point with an assistant, it's such an amazing thing. And I think a lot of people that come into that environment feel like it's a difficult thing to break, a bond that's difficult to break between a photographer and an assistant when he's really reading your mind. But, you know, but also such a nice thing as a photographer when everything sort of falls into place.
Yeah. That's amazing. And when we were chatting the other day, it was very interesting chat, and we were talking about the industry where it is now, and you know, the earning power of a photographer and the time-based business where we book for so many hours, and then you work and you bill for those hours. And how are you managing that side of your business side of your photography and managing to, you know, create something that has a legacy or something that builds from there? Are you doing anything else, or you?
No, you know, you know, Malcolm, it's that thing that I wish I had been doing. To be honest with you, this whole COVID thing has taught me quite a lesson. I've been fortunate enough that the phone's just rung. You know what I mean? I've never had quiet times. I've never felt like I've needed to do anything else. I've never felt the will or the need to do anything else. You know, week in and week out, I've got things that are happening, bookings that are coming in, you know, jobs that are lined up 2 or 3 months in advance. So I've never really had to think about that, and it's, you know, it's something I think that moving forward I'm going to have to start doing. And certainly, young guys coming through are going to need to start thinking about second income streams and that type of thing. But there's no ways I'm going to be negative. I'm a very positive person. I'm really thinking we're going to get back on track here. I think that it's going to change, and we're all going to need to change. I've certainly reinvented myself a million times, and had to sort of climb out of these deep trodden paths that I've dug for myself in the industry. But you know, when you're passionate enough, I think that you can do it. But this whole COVID thing is definitely a big obstacle. I think this is something that affects every single person, you know, especially in any photography, whatever they're doing, and whatever, whether it's makeup artists, creatives, whether it's ad agents, whatever it is, everybody's going to have to start thinking about a different way to think to work. So, what that is, I think I'm still figuring out. I'm sort of trying to drive things now. I'm being very what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to be proactive with clients here. I'm trying to instigate work. I'm like, what about this as an idea? What about this as an idea? Approaching my clients and saying, okay, listen, you know, the trap, I think, is to not sort of fall into that whole COVID rate thing where, okay, now suddenly we're all struggling. So now, you know, we've got to give ourselves away for free. It's a very big question mark. I think if anything, it's a time for our industry to stand up and to say, okay, listen, we're in new waters here. It's an opportunity for us to make a mark for ourselves in the industry. We don't have a union. We're not like the film industry guys. You know, this waiting 3 months to get paid stuff. You know, we need to start saying, we do a job, we get paid for it. We get 50% up front like it happens everywhere else in the world. Why is South Africa behind in that context, especially with big retailers waiting or them taking 5% off you because they're paying you in 30 days? And we need to stand together at some point and say, listen, guys, we need to actually use this as an opportunity to actually set some kind of standard. And I'm not saying unionize it because that never works, but just to go, we're still on our client's side. We still understand that they've got businesses to run and they can't commission work if they're not doing well. So we need to obviously understand that. But what it is, I don't know. I think that photographers are renowned and photography agencies are renowned not talking to each other. I think we need to talk.
Absolutely. And I've tried to do it throughout my career and have done things and tried to get people and was involved in the PPSA for a long time. And, eventually I remember sitting in the one PPSA meeting and just saying, guys, nobody's coming to these meetings to discuss any of these things. We've got a bit of fun here. Let's go for dinner because we're going to get more out of that than what we're actually getting out of this. And I don't understand this closed-mindedness of people not wanting to share their knowledge, because it's going to help us all at the end of the day. And I think the difficulty is if you're overseas, you're getting usage. So you're getting some form of annuity income. So you're getting something that's building value. And the thing is, where's the value in what we're doing? Because we do one shot and then that's used by the client. Could be used. I mean, I've had work that's been used for 15 years by a client, huge, massive company, and I don't want to say who it is in this country, but they've used that on their branding in every single major retail outlet for the last 15 years. I got paid $2,000 for that.
Yeah, you see, that's a very good point. We don't own our images, and we never do. The one thing that I try to do is actually set a timeline in place where it's like, it works better for magazines. Fashion is a different thing. I think that probably works for you, but fashion, the trends change so quickly. And that's what I've enjoyed about the fashion industry, the fact that it generates work, perpetually generates work because seasons are changing and new trends are coming in. So, I've kind of accepted that I'm not going to get usage on that type of thing. But, unless you're shooting a celebrity or stuff like that, which we do on the odd occasion. Not that we've got what you'd call celebrities in South Africa. We do. There are things happening out there that we've just got no idea. There's an emerging market of celebrities, whether they're TV presenters. They've got massive followings, millions of South Africans following them. And I've worked with a lot of them, and some of them are divas and some of them are incredible. They're all amazing at the end of the day. They're all there for a reason. They're all very clever people. And they all know about their brand and who they are as a brand, and they stick to you can't change them, So, but you're right. We don't own our images at any point, and there should maybe it's a year or 2 years, and then the copyright comes back to us, So
there needs to be used, when it's spread around a lot. But I think the one thing I remember when I was working for the photographer who I assisted for a long time, and he said to me, and he made this point, and he said, Malcolm, bear in mind, you're never going to make enough money by just being a photographer to retire and do everything. But what photography will allow you to do, it'll allow you to generate enough income to do other things which are going to build something for you down the line. And I think that's the way we need to look at, whether it's you're going to be selling prints, or whether you're going to be investing in the stock exchange. I don't know, whatever your particular interest that you might find, but you do develop enough money to do that. But the thing is, if you look at this COVID period, and I think that's what's sort of struck home with so many people, is what is your earning potential without actually, or how long can you live without earning?
Yeah, that's right.
And most people are saying to me 3 to 4 months.
That's it.
You could become ill, or you could want to retire at 60, and you could end up breaking your arm and not being able to shoot again, not being able to carry something, and you might live for another 30, 40 years.
I think a good message to any young photographers coming through right now, guys, look, there's going to be a lot of guys that come and go, guys that try, that fail, and then there's going to be those that come through and succeed and do well. But their heads they're creative people. They're not thinking about business. They're not thinking about their future. They're not thinking about pensions. They're not thinking about these type of things. Only when we start getting to our ages that we start to go, hang on, what have we actually done here? We've just been flying around the world and shooting it, but I've never really sort of considered where I'm going to be. Am I going to be a 60-year-old photographer in South Africa? The answer is probably no. So to the young guys coming through is that when they do start earning is to really be clever. Get help. Sit down with people who know what's going on and get help and go, okay, great, I'm earning this money. What do I do with it? Where do I put it?
That's where personally, I see that there's a lot we can give as older guys. I'm hitting more closer to my 60s now. My friends that I work with are all in their 60s, and they're all doing different things, and they're not really able to retire. And I think there's two things that we could do. First of all, I think the colleges need to come to us and start saying, look, hang on, we need 5 or 10 photographers that are associated with us, even if they paid us a small amount each month to say, right, you're an affiliate photographer who's joined the college, and there's a strong teaching of photography, and then come to us and start saying, look, guys, you're in your 50s, 60s or whatever, what would you advise, and what financial advice, and how would you advise photographers actually handle things like that? And I think a lot of this is where we need to be brought in, and possibly not that we have all the knowledge, but we've been down the road and now know where the pitfalls are. So and that's part of what I'm trying to do with my whole collaborators and all this stuff. And it's not only photographers, it's creatives in general. We need to sit down and we need to start thinking cleverly about how we can look at moving forward. I'm doing things now that have got nothing to do with photography to get myself going. And some other things that do have photography, but there's so many options out there. And we really need
just being aware of what they are. Open your mind, right?
Yeah. Actually, do you ever remember? It's you're doing this whole thing, which is amazing, and good few years back, you had this thing. It was when we were transitioning from film to digital, and nobody knew what the hell was going on. I think it was called Digital Dilemmas. You had this workshop called Digital Dilemmas. Do you remember? It was through Pixelfunny. You did a free thing. I think it was an accountant or something, so you got a fly buzzing around me. It was an accountant or something who came around and was trying to teach us young guys, like, listen, just because clients think that you buy a digital camera and it doesn't cost you anything, and they don't have the film costs and the Polaroid costs, you've got to understand that when you get into your car. I remember Gerrit Genis was there were a bunch of photographers.
A whole lot of us, because I had an MD at the Pixel Foundry who had nothing to do with photography, Andrew, and he. So what we did is with Andrew, we try to speak to people and say, look, it's all very well taking pictures, but you've got to look at the other side of it, and how you're going to finance this, how you're going to run through it. And I think most manufacturing companies and that would have a chief financial officer, a CFO, who would come in and manage that side of it. And yet somehow with photographers, we just expect, or designers or whoever, we just expect to run with this, and it's not our expertise.
That's a good.
I learned so much from that. I remember it so well. I learned so much from that because your guy, I can't remember who he was, but I remember him saying, do you realize, especially for the younger guys that were going into digital, who had never really earned money, or they were giving their work away. And for us guys who were supporting families, we're going, what the hell are you guys doing? These things have costs. And he put it in perspective. It's like, every time you turn that key on your car, it's costing you money. Literally, that as soon as you're burning fuel, it's costing you money. As soon as you wake up and you put the light on, it's costing you money. So you can't give anything away. We needed to put these things into place. And it set off a great chain of photographers coming together for a very, very short little time to go, okay, great, we need to charge per shot, and we need to get some kind of digital costing together, and set a kind of standard. And it did. And people, and the magazines at that point, sort of associated magazines and that, they were amazing. I mean, they were like, okay, cool, you're right. Okay, fantastic. This is what it's worth to us. We're saving, you're still gaining, so it's very important that we talk.
Well, look, I think that's really a great thing. I think we've gone on quite a while now, so I think we need to wrap this up. But look, Jacques, I think there's great advice there. And I think there is so much that we're all willing to share, and we can learn from the young guys too. I don't think it's a one-way street. It's a two-way street. So I'd really appeal to all, and it's not only photographers, all designers and photographers, illustrators, people running small businesses where maybe you're manufacturing something, and for us to get together and work out how we can help each other. I mean, just listening to Jacques, he's got such amazing advice and ideas, and has learned so much over the years. that, to have somebody like that willing to share information is just amazing. And it makes me feel so good, because I know I've got people like that, who we can talk to and work with, and this time has brought us together. So yeah, Jacques, I'd really like to say thank you. And if anybody's got advice, if they've got anything they'd like to ask you, they can put it in the comments and write, and if you can answer any questions for them, it would be amazing.
Go onto my Instagram, it's jacquesweyerstudio.com, and I can DM me any questions. I'm more than happy to reply. I've actually replied to 2 this morning, gentlemen asking me a whole bunch of questions, a young guy. So always happy to give any information I can with absolute pleasure.